Welcome back, it's me, Lou, and I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review. And today, we are looking at this. The Marvel Avengers Bend and Flex action figures. Okay, so I've been seeing these toys on the shelves for a long time now. And every time I look at them, I always kind of wonder who buys these things. Not that they're bad, but I can't imagine any kid wanting this over getting like a Marvel Legends or like one of the more budget priced Hasbro, Marvel figures. Not that I'm saying that these are bad, but every time I look at these, they always just seem so goofy that they're kind of like these weird bendy figures. But then I have to remind myself that like bend and flex figures and bendable figures and bendies, they've been around for a long time. For me, like back in the might have been mid to late 90s, there were like no new Star Wars toys, for the longest time. And then they released those Star Wars bendy figures, maybe like in 1993 or 94. And then people got excited because it was the first time in a long time that we had new Star Wars action figures. Granted, they weren't like the retro figures that were like had 5 points of articulation. And I think we might have been like a year or two away from Power of the Force. But we had these like actual Star Wars action figures. The only thing was that there were these weird rubbery plastic things and they're bendable. And then there were also like bendable wrestling action figures. And you name it, they probably made a bendy of them. So I guess it's, historically, in terms of toys that they were going to make these, these bendable Marvel superhero guys. So yeah, I've been seeing these in the stores for a long time, and every now and then I'm kind of tempted to buy them, but I can never pull the trigger on it just because it's like, with the amount of money I pay for one of these figures, I could just buy like a figure I'd actually really like. But I saw this at Target. It was clearanced. As you can see here, it was normally $19.99, and it was clearanced for $6. And I'm like, I gotta buy this because it's on clearance, and I gotta check these out just to see what they're like. I've seen so many of these. I've seen Captain America, I've seen Spider-Man, all the other superheroes and stuff, but I never actually took the time to actually buy one because I just couldn't I couldn't justify it. But you price the figure at $5, and I'm like, I'm not gonna say no. So yeah, here we have the Bend and Flex. Right off the bat, you can tell this is made for kids. This is ages 4 and up. But anytime the package design is open air like this, like if the figures aren't in a bubble or encased in a box, it's meant for the child to or parent to handle it to see what it's like. That's the case here. This, they want you to kind of fiddle around with it to get an idea of what it is. And I also think it might be a cost-effective measure also. I think not having a plastic bubble just makes it cheaper, just because you're just worrying about, producing the cardboard backing. So on the side of the package, it kind of shows you, since it's a bendable figure, all the wacky poses it could do. And this one, it's Thor and Loki. This Thor looks more comic book inspired. This kind of looks like a mix of Loki, the comic book and the movie one. Loki, unfortunately, doesn't have a cape. I'm always used to seeing Loki with a cape, but Thor has one here. It comes with 2 blast effects, which I think also doubles as figure stands or shields. And you get Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, right there. On the back, not a whole lot. It's a waste of space, if you ask me. It'd be cool if they gave you a small little bio or even like a small catalog of the other figures in the line. One thing that really surprises me is that I didn't realize this was made by Hasbro. I thought this was made by like another company. Like when companies can't get like they could get the license to a property, but then like another company, like a bigger one like Mattel or Hasbro, they might have like the master license and they could like produce like the actual cool action figures. There's always that smaller company that they could get the license to do toys, but they're only licensed to make like smaller toys or like stuff that's not going to be as good. But yeah, I'm surprised. I didn't realize this was actually a Hasbro product. So, let's take these toys out and let's see if they're worth picking up at full price. Alright, so I'm going to take out Mjolnir first. One of the reasons why I got this also is that I kind of told myself if these figures were junk, at least I'd have another Mjolnir hammer. You know, I could use this for my Marvel Legends. So there's this weird blast effect, and it looks like it doubles as a stand because it has the foot peg. But then there's also a socket on the other end, so I'm not really sure what that's about. We'll take a look in a second. Alright, so we have one bendable figure out. Looks really weird. Alright, Thor's a little bit more stubborn. Okay, so we have the God of Thunder on one side. And then we have the Trickster God on the other. So I believe that if you bought like so some of these figures they sell not in double packs but as solos. And I believe a single figure might retail for maybe like $9. If you know the price, you know, just comment below, but I believe they're like somewhere between $9 and $10. So we have that, we have the Mjolnir, and we have the two little feet. I want to say these figures might be about 6 inches tall. So in some weird ways, I think they're actually to scale with like Marvel Legends. I don't have any of my Marvel Legends figures on me right now. But yeah, just by looking at them, I think they might be about 6 inches. Okay, so let's take a look at the weird bendable features. I'm going to use Loki just because he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the cape that looks like it's going to get in the way. So for Loki, all right, let's examine them. So the sculpting on this isn't the greatest. It's very bare minimum. It's very cartoony in appearance, which is alright because these are aimed at kids. The sculpting, even though what is there, it's nice and crisp. The paint application, it's alright. It's not pristine. You know, it's a little bit sloppy in some areas. But you know, I'm not expecting too much out of this. It's for this toy's aimed at like 4-year-olds. So the bendable feature though, it seems kind of doesn't feel as flexible as I thought it would be. It requires a little bit of force to it, and it doesn't. They kind of hold the poses all right. It's a weird play feature. Oh, okay, and apparently this guy detached from the waist with his ball socket. One thing is, I'm curious about this. All right, so I'm not sure if this is intended for this to be, but since they detach at the socket like that, I guess there is some modularity between this. I actually prefer the black pants over the green. This looks cooler. This actually looks more like Loki. So yeah, I'm sure it's not intended, but so you can swap them off at the waist. The bendable stuff, I'm not sure how long something like this will like last, how durable it is. Like if you're a kid and you go really nuts, and if you start winding this up, maybe it'll break or rip the rubber plastic over the wire. Pose-wise, alright, so for me this is very frustrating. Every time I'm trying to bend his legs, I'm kind of like inadvertently pushing down forward on his upper torso, and that's always snapping this off. I don't understand why they just didn't join the upper torso and the bottom torso with this kind of bendy wire. I mean, it does allow for like swivel movement, but at the same time it pops off so easily. I could kind of see the appeal in this, but for me, it's almost like why bother? Because they're kind of competing with themselves. Because when you have like Marvel figures priced at $9 that are budget and they're basic and they're kind of more of a traditional figure, it almost seems like you're kind of like competing with yourself when you release a similarly priced product. But I think it's not as attractive as a purchase, unless your child's really into the weird bendy gimmick. So, I mean, it does have its merits. I could kind of see the appeal of it. One thing I do think would be kind of cool with these figures is that, you could do it with normal action figures also, but if you're a child into like stop motion photography and you create like short animated videos with like stop motion, I could see this being a kind of like a cool prop for that. It's kind of like a cool armature, and you could get in poses that'll hold. In some ways you could kind of get some poses that you might not be able to get with a standard action figure. So for stop motion, this might be a cool thing. It's not bad. As I'm fiddling around with it, it's starting to grow on me a little bit. I think I was just kind of taken off guard by how different it feels than in like a standard action figure. Let's take a look at Thor. So Thor, he has these, I don't know what this is. I just noticed this. He has these two, on his cape, he has these two kind of like things notched out. I don't know what the purpose of this is for. I don't know if it's to make his cape more pliable and so it can actually move around better, or if you're supposed to use this to store like Mjolnir. I don't really know what the purpose of this is. His head rotates also. I don't think you could pop the heads off. Yeah, I'm not going to try to force it off. Their expressions, they look very kid-like. They don't look like adults. They look very kid-like. Like maybe there's like teenage Thor or something. Their proportions are kind of exaggerated. Like if you couldn't tell, his hands are just giant. Yeah, it's very frustrating for me because every time I want to move the legs, I'm crunching down on the figure and they're just popping off at the waist. Hasbro, for some reason, they always feel the need to release some sort of budget gimmick figure. Like, if you remember, maybe like 3 years ago, they had those Hero Mashers. And I think they're about maybe 5.5 to 6 inches in scale. They kind of had really wonky proportions. And the gimmick with that is you can actually detach all the limbs and the head and swap body parts. But they also made like Hero Mashers for Star Wars. So you could like, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, you could have even swapped the pieces with the Star Wars figures. But yeah, I don't understand why they just don't focus on like budget toys, but make them appealing a little bit to collectors. Because these really feel like they're aimed towards kids. But when you're already kind of releasing another line of figures that are at the same price level, for example, let's say that you have a parent who's an adult collector and they collect Marvel Legends. Their kids might want to play with those toys, but then the parents like, I don't want you playing with my expensive collectibles. So then the parent could resort to buying like a budget Avengers figure or a budget Spider-Man figures. The ones that are like $9 with like less articulation, and they're like a half-inch smaller, but they look, if you're a little kid, they look close enough to what your dad has on his display shelf. This feels very much like it's aimed at kids, which I'm not faulting them for. For me, I just don't understand the strategy. Like, you have a budget $9 figure already. Why release a product at the same price point that has a really might be short-lived gimmick? Like, I think these might have been around for only like maybe 2 years. And I don't know if they're moving forward with more of these bendable figures. Because as I've mentioned, I found this in the clearance aisle. So I don't know if they're clearancing them out just because this line is already going to be dead. I don't really know. Okay, so yeah, they're cool. It's cool for what it is. I can't fault it for it being a bendable figure because this does what it's supposed to do. It bends. Would I pay $10 for an individual figure or $20 for this set? Most likely not. If I was a parent, and for this kind of toy, I think the sweet spot for the 2-pack would be about $12 to $15. For the single figures, I think the sweet spot would be like, you know, $8. Just because, you know, I'd price it $1 or $2 less than the budget Marvel figures. Yeah, so I think that's where I kind of stand. If I had to rate this on a numerical scale, between 1 and 10, probably 7 to 7.5. Because I think it does what it's supposed to do. You know, it's a bendy figure. It bothers me that they kind of come apart as easily as they do. You know, for me, it's like either just make the waist swivel and, you know, so it's affixed more permanently and just lose the ab crunch. Because with the ab crunch, it's going to pop off. The socket here, it's not that tight. Unless that's part of the play feature. Unless they want kids to be modular and swap out, you know, characters at the waist. But if you know, if you're going to go at that point, you may as well make the head swappable also. And I don't think they unplug from their socket that easily. So yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings about these. I don't want, you know, be too critical of them because, you know, these are aimed at 4-year-olds. And if I was a 4-year-old or if I had a 4-year-old, you know, I could see kids being really into this. Do you need this as an adult collector? It depends. If you're like a Thor completist or a Loki completist and you just like collecting all things Thor and Loki, you know, go for it. It's not bad. But it's not great either, so. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So wrapping this up, once again, my name is Lou. Thank you so much for checking this out. If you're new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a returning viewer or subscriber, thanks again for your support, comments, and likes. I greatly appreciate it. And until the next video, take care of yourselves and buy lots of toys. All right, later.